Welcome to the another episode of r/Askreddit. What's a dead giveaway? That someone is not actually as wealthy as they claim. When they constantly talk about how wealthy they are. A genius doesn't need to tell you they are smart. An athlete doesn't need to tell you they are fit. And a rich person shouldn't need to tell you they are wealthy. I know a guy who has a YouTube channel who constantly brags about being a multimillionaire. Sadly for him, I know his brother-in-law, and in actual fact he drives an expensive car on HP, lives in a council flat in Burscough, Lancashire, England, and his business has just £11,000 of assets, and a turnover of not much more. He's a bellend. Making the claim at all is a dead giveaway. I sat through a conversation at work this week with a group of people all talking about how they were gifted, because they were part of their gifted programs in elementary school. They are 30s and 40s adults. Like, if you're bragging about it with acquaintances, you ain't. I had a conversation like that earlier this week. Ended with, but it means nothing now. I'm as dumb as anyone else. 90% of the wealthy shut the f about it, because they learn once they start making good money everyone wants a piece. Talking about it constantly equals broke AF. I've learned from this thread that, if you are very wealthy, and don't want anyone to know, buy some Gucci t-shirts, and talk about money all the time, and everyone will just assume you're broke. Similarly, the more money you literally flash around, like handfuls of US currency, the less I assume you have, or rather, I assume that all you have, is what you're holding. People who actually are wealthy mostly try to hide it. As early 20-something-year-olds with no money, my friend and I decided to act like true tourists and visit Tiffany's. You know how in most department stores someone comes over and asks to help you? Yeah, not here lol. What was fascinating was that there were plenty of people decked head to toe in design labels, like super obvious loud bling type labels, and they were getting the same treatment we were, being completely ignored. You know who was getting helped? The older guy in plain Dockers and a college t-shirt and his well-dressed, but zero obvious labels wife. As a person which knows many very rich people, I can guarantee that not a single one of them wants to be known as rich. That sums it up pretty well. I went to school with two kids when I was younger. One's family was actually very wealthy. While he had nice things, he wasn't a braggart, and he wasn't a he didn't act entitled, he just had nice things. The other kid's family was trying very hard to pretend that they were wealthy while actually being in severe debt from trying to keep up with the Joneses. Their kid was an entitled who would bully people on the playground. Her family would do ridiculous things to show off how wealthy they were. Her family ended up broke, and she had to change schools when they lost everything. The other kid just quietly kept doing what he was doing. Didn't even find out how wealthy he was until we graduated from junior high and he invited the whole class over for a graduation party. That's when I found out that it was his family that had built the giant mansion on the hill overlooking the whole valley where we lived. We'd wondered about that house for years, and it was a shock to find out I went to school with the kid that lived there. Not having actual money, I allegedly used to sell weed to a lot of people with nice houses, cars, lives on paper, etc. But the amount of times I had to spot people until they got paid on Friday was truly astounding. Allegedly, I thought that would be cash only business. I feel like actual rich people prioritize vacations or travel, buying their kids cars, paying for their kids or grandkids tuition. They don't spend money on flashy or luxury stuff as much. This was my parents. They shopped at Kohl's, drove unassuming cars, but we vacationed every year out of the country. I got a new car when I turned 16 and didn't have any college debt. Other than living in an affluent area, you'd never know by looking at them. Honestly, I'm happy my parents were like that too. Having no college debt and having gifts like a car made my life as an adult so much easier. Ever notice how those jet-setting influencers that post their pictures out of the airplane window are behind the wing? They're in coach. The picture in business is where they stop to pose on the way through. There's also a fake airplane set some of them go to and take their photos. That sounds like such a great business model. Buy water damaged exotic cars for pennies on the dollar, or an executive jet with a damaged airframe, and rent it out to influencers to pose with. Private jet pilot friend of mine said for the slightly wealthy they bring loads of luggage. The ultra rich bring a day back they have enough money to buy clothes when they get there or already have clothes waiting on them. I recall a Reddit comment from way back which was by someone who worked as an assistant to some super wealthy guy or family. They explained how when the guy or family wanted to travel somewhere, the assistant went right at work, taking care of everything from making the travel arrangements, custom ordering any clothes they might need or want at the destination, and then flying ahead a day early to collect everything, make sure the accommodations were in order, and that the closets were stocked with exactly the clothes the guy or family wanted or needed during that specific trip. Money talks, wealth whispers. Anyone that posts about their wealth, whether it be bragging or posting about a new purchase, etc., usually aren't as well off as they pretend to be. Big hat, no cattle. I'm not well versed in judging someone's wealth, but I do notice that the fake rich only look rich on social media and try their hardest to go to popular locations celebrities post. I know a couple of friends who took out a loan just to keep up the facade that they're all in on the latest iPhones and wearables. They built a persona of being a rich kid, so now they have to stay the course. Because of these people, the actual wealthy people gets wealthier. Wannabe riches aid the riches. In the UK, we call that surface wealth. 2 BMWs on the driveway, but sod all in the fridge. When they repeatedly and adamantly tell you how wealthy they are. Yes. Just like anyone who sells a course on running a business is most definitely scamming, or they'd run a real business, like that Cody Sanchez chick, who talks so much about being successful, but seems to spend a bunch of time on courses. Ding ding ding. Red flag. Depends. Scammers get rich on doing that, because they make money selling courses on that premise. They make a goofy advertisement for some book or course that will help you get rich too. If they were actually rich, they would be on some tropical beach engaging in whatever vices they enjoy most, not hawking some get rich quick scheme. To be fair, some get rich from selling these stupid courses. Wait a minute. I could get rich by selling a course about how to get rich selling get rich courses. Funaki you magnificent. My dad's entire job is managing millionaire or billionaire philanthropy accounts, so I've grown up surrounded by some of the wealthiest people in the country, and I never knew, until I got older, how these Mr. Smith and Ms. Jones people that I'd grown up hanging out with were anything above upper middle class. Normal clothes, modest homes, very down to earth and funny people. Big wealth, and especially old wealth, is quiet wealth. Do you think it's possible they live more extravagant lives than other of their social circles? Designer clothes with massive brand name or icons ain't tailored to those who want to seem as if they can afford it and pay ridiculous amounts of money. I think of this at work with my co-workers who have small purses with LV emblazoned all over them. I go out of my way to not have any logos. I think it makes the clothes far cooler if they just have a nice graphic or a plain color pattern. Also, when Polo started making their logo bigger they got a lot trashier. Sorry but Gucci clothes. It screams wanna be rich. You can add Prada, LV, and whatever other mainstream luxury brands. Which looks silly emo, because you end up like a walking billboard when they flaunt it. Really rich people don't feel the need to mention the expensive things they bought or did every time. Except Floyd Mayweather, who's currently living on borrowed time. Seeking out faraway exhibitions to pay past taxes isn't a good indication for having much. Dead broke within a few years. I have a family member who insists she and her husband are upper middle class. She isn't. She's rich, 8 figures, but it hurts her in some sort of primal way to acknowledge that. Her adult brother is also wealthy, although not as much as his sister. Likely also 8 figures. He insists he's blue collar and middle class. There's something in their upbringing that makes them ashamed of having made it financially. That's new money. If they're family, but you also don't have that money, it's not generational wealth. They want to go away with you for the weekend and tell you they'll have the Gulfstream G550 pick you up at the local airfield Friday evening. You show up at the airfield only to find that G550 is really a barely functioning 74 Cessna 150 with the passenger seat ripped out for skydiving. That's the plain version of a windowless white van. Such an oddly specific answer sounds like it might have a story behind it. I know a guy who is a legitimate billionaire. They have 2 family jets, one for long and one for short range because, of course who doesn't? Their house cost around 30 million to build. But if you saw them on the street you'd never know it. His rule is they never own a car over 75k. Don't wear flashy jewelry or watches. No Birkin bags or Jamichus. He doesn't want to advertise their wealth. You have to really know them. I knew them for a year before I was ever invited to their home, and their son was interning at my law firm for 6 months of that time. The really wealthy don't flaunt it, because kidnapping is very real in many countries. You know, all these Insta girls living the life aboard magnificent luxurious yachts. Well, their currency is their It's an open secret that a lot of Instagram models are sugar babies. If a woman keeps posting pictures of her luxury vacations to Dubai, she's not the one paying for it. A lot of them are just straight up workers. I love how everyone here knows what rich people do and don't do. Willing to bet there's some rich dude reading all the and laughing his off. More than one, I'm sure. Pretty much. It's mostly a lot of tropes and common knowledge taken as fact. I'm not rich, I was just a poor kid raised in their orbits, and this stuff makes me laugh. It's almost like they don't realize people can dress up or dress down depending on what they are doing, and many here are mistaking money for class. A stack of losing lottery tickets. My ne'er-do-well oldest brother's car was always littered with lotto tickets. Not that I never buy a lottery ticket. I'll drop $10 or $20 when it's over a billion, but those tickets were everywhere. Having been around some super wealthy people, I would say that a giveaway of a false rich person would be knowing the price of things. If someone keeps telling you that the X they got cost $, and that Y cost $, they are trying to flex on you. Really wealthy people don't know the price of things, or at least the price of things that we the poor know. They might know the price of their yacht or jet or helicopter. They don't know the price of the car they drive, the clothes they wear, the tech they use. They just pay, or have their people pay for them. It's one banana. Michael, how much could it cost? $10? I have some very wealthy friends, dudes in their 30s who are multi-millionaires. And the one thing they all have in common is that they never talk about money. They wear nice clothes and watches, but they don't point out anything or talk about how expensive things are. I also belong to a yacht club and a country club, and the wealthy people that I know never talk about money either. Really wealthy people don't talk about being wealthy because they are used to being wealthy, because they wear it and are saturated in showy symptoms of it. Why speak if you can show teeth, shoes, and an expensive car sitting outside a mediocre or crappy house? Wealthy or not, I'm wary of anybody with teeth sitting outside their house. I'm kinda stoned, and I read this imagining some rich person's driveway full of random teeth instead of gravel. Not like they'd have a gravel driveway anyways. When they were in shock that I grew up with 4 people and only 1 bathroom and shower. So you all shared 1 shower? No, we took turns. The Lambo is a rental or a Fero kit car? Fero kit car has me rolling. No, you can't have a Lambo. We have one at home. Lambo at home. Obvious Fero with duct tape holding the skirts on. Edit. And the gappiest panels you've ever seen with bad alignment. Years and years ago, late 90s, I think, I remember some dealership having a new Fero from a year that was particularly good for kitting it. I think the late 80s, with 25 miles on the odometer. I remember the dealership wanting $125,000 for it because it could be kitted into a Lamborghini. It's like, oh, you can actually just buy a Lamborghini for that much. Brand names plastered over everything they own. Except certain cultures seem to like that. A friend who is from a remarkably wealthy family, billions, would have a different designer item with a big logo on each part of her body and all over her gorgeous home. I got her to cut it out by telling her it made her a target for crime. I didn't have the heart to tell her it was tacky. She's very sweet. There is a modesty about the really wealthy, especially old money, and it is taught. Was on a gondola in Telluride and was riding with some young teens, probably brothers, maybe 12 to 14 years old or so. Asked where they were from, and they said East Texas, where I'm from. Oh, so did y'all fly out to DFW? Me making small talk. They looked at each other uncomfortably and said very quietly, almost embarrassed but clearly schooled in what to say, we, flew privately. Oh, okay. My father is quite wealthy. Growing up I would ask him randomly, how much do you make? Or how much money do you have? His answer was always the same. If someone asks you, just tell them you don't know. It used to hurt me to no end, but being older now, I realize how wise his answer was. It didn't matter how much money, just that looking back on growing up, we never needed for anything. He never needed to brag about it or flaunt it. And he sure as hell was never going to let his kids become spoiled bricks either. Your father seems like a wise man. According to the Waltons, it's their shoes. There's a sound economic reason for this. A really good pair of shoes that are properly maintained will last you many years. If you get a year out of a cheap pair of shoes, you are doing well, and if you take them to the shoe repairer to get them resoled or rehealed, and they'll laugh at you. King Charles has a pair of shoes older than I am, and I'm middle-aged, that don't seem to actually have any money. You see it a lot in things like sports teams takeovers, billionaires who claim to be backed by a consortium of other billionaires. But when it comes to actually putting money up, there's always a delay or a problem. Some people accumulate wealth by squeezing every dime out of every transaction, even when they have liquid assets to cover it 100,000 times. They will never pay today when they can delay and negotiate 4 different terms that may or may not be in their favor. It's a sophisticated mating dance for high-powered suits. They get hauled into court on fraud charges for overstating the value of their properties in order to grift money from lenders. And yet somehow those valuations are never the ones used to assess property taxes. This place is worth 10 million when I need a loan, but 10,000 when I pay taxes. How much they work. Work with a teacher who drives a really expensive car, dresses really nice, and complains about having to work 2 jobs. You know why they work 2 jobs? Because they can't afford the they bought and are in debt. I don't work much because I'm okay with thrift store clothes and used cars. Being in debt is not wealth. It is just spending other people's money you can't afford. Being in debt is not wealthy. Using debt effectively is using wealth effectively. Make money work for you, not the other way around. They invite you somewhere, but split the bill between everybody. When my true wealthy friends invite me somewhere, they will pay for everything because they know I can't afford it, and they don't make it awkward at all. My favorite trick is to go buy a gift card for the restaurant we are meeting at when I know my friend doesn't really have the money. Then when they insist on splitting, well, I've had this gift card forever, and if I don't use it now I'll forget again. Works every time. Also I get gift cards from my credit card for perks, so I'll claim the card I bought was a free one. Wearing fake watches. Wealthy people often have luxury watches because they value the craft of watches, or they give it to themselves as a medal for achievements. Fake watches are for people that want to look rich, but are not rich. There's poor people who finance Rolexes too, which to me is insane. Go over to r/Rolex if you don't believe me. Teeth. Truly wealthy have either taken care of their teeth over the years, or have expensive replacement implants or sets. Not applicable in upper class England. I used to work with a dude, G, who was in his upper 50s and getting close to retirement. His teeth were kinda messed up, not enough that he couldn't function, but he definitely needed some work done. One day, an old flame he had been stationed with in Germany, like 30 plus years prior, pops up on Facebook. They get to talking, reacquainted, and found out that the flame had never really died, despite the fact that they had parted ways and gone on to have their own marriages or kids or lives. So she left her multi-millionaire husband, because it had been a loveless marriage for over a decade by then, to take up with G again. She got half of all community assets in the divorce, which was a pretty good amount. The first thing G and her did together as a couple was to go get every tooth in their mouth pulled. Then, after they used temporary dentures to let their gums heal up, they got full mouth implants. I believe the total cost was something like $20,000 each. They got a deal because they were both replacing every tooth and all at once. Also, the temporary dentures didn't fit very well. G let everyone in the office know exactly how uncomfortable the process was in the most old man Carlin-esque way possible. IDK where exactly G is now, last I heard. He rode off into the sunset with a full pension and the love of his life. I should hit him up again sometime. He was a really cool dude and knew a lot about gardening. For a man, the wear on the heels of his shoes. For a woman, the ends of her hair, and they're fried. She's not. My husband and I got a pretty check one time and decided to open up an account in a different bank for the deposit. We asked some of my more well-off friends and they recommended a bank in the very nice area of the San Francisco Bay Area. We walk in nervous because 1. OMG, who gave us so much money? 2. This is going to be a pain and they are gonna think this is fake. 3. I'm Whiskey Tango and he's blue collar. That being said, everyone was very nice, but as we were setting up the account, a very disheveled older man walks in wearing grey sweatpants and white socks with no shoes. Now at Wells Fargo, or probably any of our regular banks, I would have expected this dude to have been stopped or talked to as the PD were discreetly called. Why? Again, old messy guy in sweatpants, stained shirt, no shoes. What actually happened? He sat down with the banker next to us and they were chatting with each other like nothing. First name basis. He paid off one of his houses and moved $500,000 from one account to another. That's all I could eavesdrop on. The moral of the story, you never know. Thank you.